Hey! I wrote a book called Flatrock. It's a cozy slice of life comedy inspired by Discworld and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's available as print and ebook on Amazon, and here's a sample from the start of the book. Oops, said God. These words were uttered just after the creation of the planet that would be called Flatrock. Maybe it was his old age getting to him, but God wasn't so good at making new worlds anymore. Flatrock is, as its name suggests, a flat planet. To make up for his mistake, God made Flatrock face the sun, and instead of rotating that planet on an axis to create a day and night cycle, a flat moon was created to block out the sun at regular intervals. It wasn't perfect, but it was, at the very least, functional. Having a flat planet did create some other complications, however. For one, the climate. Heat rises up in the atmo-flat, not atmosphere, the world isn't round, meaning desert climates are found exclusively in the north, while tundra is only found in the south. Feeling this planet was destined to turn out a bit weird anyway, God experimented with adding what we would call magic into the world. Magic works by speaking in the language of God, like a prayer or a wish, and the desired effect becoming reality, although it's not that easy. The difficulty with performing magic stems from the fact that God's language is incredibly complex, and even the greatest minds spend years researching and remembering each word to perform magic effectively. That being said, there's a second method of learning magic which involves stubbing your toe repeatedly and accidentally discovering new spells through saying pain-induced gobbledygook phrases. Either method is equally effective, it just depends on how much walking you intend to do that day. Magic items were also an exciting concept to God. By attuning a mundane item with the language of God, it could carry a magic effect indefinitely. These became incredibly powerful and desirable items, which unfortunately started an undesirable number of wars, which is to say, more than zero. People cried insults at God, who had accidentally let slip that he existed, and people started their own clubs with the rules they wanted to have. God eventually stepped away from management duties as he didn't enjoy the attention, and let Flatrock be independent from divine intervention. It was probably for the best. Some centuries passed, and things got about as good as they were ever going to get. The times of rampant war were diminishing, many countries were on the cusp of technological breakthroughs, alcohol existed, life was becoming pretty comfortable. Comfortable for everyone except a man named Milo. His entire life was about to be shaken up. It started in a pub very familiar to Milo known as the Devil's Neck Hole. Maybe not the best bar in town. In fact, definitely not the best bar in town. It was the kind of place where if something interesting happened, it needed to be cleaned up. Across a long bar top, which was lopsided thanks to repairs made by a frequent visitor called Cat-Handed Cameron, bar stools had been set up for customers, while other stools had been left on the floor by visitors who didn't make it to the toilet in time. A snooker/poker/bedside table lay in the back end of the pub which, after most busy nights, was dangerous to go near with a naked flame. The walls were painted a dark red colour, although once cleaned, were actually cream. The colour depended on if the local football team had won that afternoon. On this day in particular, Milo was almost alone, nose deep in a pint glass with only a barmaid for company, who had just arrived for her shift. "Evening, Hazel," said Milo. "It's midday," replied Hazel. 2 minutes past is close enough. With a red pencil tucked into his pocket at all times, Milo was a middle-aged man with dark brown skin, short black hair, and a face most would describe as probably trustworthy. Despite the way he was currently spending his time, Milo always kept himself presentable. A navy shirt and black trousers were what he always wore, but today was special, as he'd gone to the effort of adding a tie. "You're looking a bit posh today," inquired Hazel. "Did you finally give in and pay for a fancy woman?" "It's just business," replied Milo. "None of my business, you mean? It's for the newspaper. They've asked me to bring along a portrait artist to sketch the people I interview." "Ooh, someone's job is going up market." "Hardly. They'd replace the printing ink with dog dirt if you told the big cheese it was trendy." Hazel had already started polishing glasses, holding the conversation as if she had memorized a script. "Well, good luck to them. It's going to be a hard job. This person's a professional. I doubt they'll have problems making a few sketches. I meant having to work with you." "Oh, ha ha," ended Milo sarcastically. If you couldn't tell, Hazel and Milo have been friends for some time. If you believe in the law of opposites attracting, this pair would confirm your suspicions. Hazel was a pale-faced woman with hair colour to match her name. Long braids, pink blouse, and plenty of ear piercings are what you might expect to see her wearing. "When are you meeting this artist?" asked Hazel. "Should have been half an hour ago," answered Milo. There was a lapse in sound around the bar as Milo took another sip of whatever concoction he chose to drink that day, when an unfamiliar woman's voice perked up. "Excuse me," it said. Milo looked around to see a short woman standing in front of him. She was smiling, which unsettled Milo. "Mr. Point?" she asked. "That's me," replied Milo. Heidi Watson, your portrait artist." The announcement was made with all the fire of an ill-fated forest. Hazel started to snigger. She could read Milo like a book and knew he had already decided to hate this woman. Heidi wore a white shirt with brown trousers and walking boots. Her hair was blonde and hung down to her waist, though had she been a normal-sized person, her hair length would not at all be out of place. By her side was a brown canvas shoulder bag with so many zips, buttons and decorations, you'd be forgiven for thinking there was a horrible accident in a tailor shop. "It's nice to meet you," said Heidi, extending her arm for a handshake. "It's a pleasure to meet you too," said Milo, lying. "Can I get you anything?" asked Hazel, giving Milo a small break to adjust himself. "Just water, please," answered Heidi, still waiting for the handshake. "Double whiskey," added Milo. Hazel poured the drinks, all the time locking eyes with Milo. Not a single word was spoken, but the phrases help and haha were easily communicated. As Heidi realised the handshake wasn't going to come, she sat down, and Milo noticed the litter of bangles, rings and bracelets adorning her arm with no sense of pattern or style as they collapsed on the bar like a skeleton in an earthquake. "What got you into being a journalist?" asked Heidi. "I have a friend who got me the job," said Milo bluntly. "Oh, same as me. My artwork was featured in a gallery north of here. One thing led to another and here I am." Heidi waited a moment for Milo to say something in return, but he kept drinking, barely making eye contact with his new assistant. Regardless of this, Heidi continued the conversation anyway. "I travel a lot," rambled Heidi. "I want to visit every major city and learn about every culture that I can. I just need the money to get there first." "Have you travelled at all?" "No, I like the peace and quiet," replied Milo. "I guess that comes with age," continued Heidi, not picking up on the hint. "But forgive me if this is rude, you don't look like a local." "I moved here from the west." "Oh, I've never been that way. Is it nice?" "Better than here," said Milo in a sarcastic tone that was lost on his present company. Their small talk continued for a while, Heidi asking more and more questions while Milo gave answers as brief as possible to avoid conversing. When the time came, the two left the Devil's Neck hole and returned to their respective homes. As Milo walked down the cobbled streets back to his small house, thinking about Heidi with the knowledge that they would be working together for the foreseeable future, one thing kept running through his head to give him comfort. "At least I've got Brandy at home." The next morning came as a wake-up call, as is generally the point of mornings. Granted, certain nocturnal creatures like owls, fruit bats and teenagers didn't have the same methodology, but as stated before, Flatrock is not perfect. Milo's morning routine consisted heavily of very little. As previously mentioned, Milo worked for a newspaper and was predominantly an interviewer. It was a line of work that didn't so much interest a man as much as it used to, but it was nonetheless easy. There was very little Milo needed to do in preparation besides have a glass of water to ease the night before. As Milo was about to pick up his work bag, there was a knock at the door. Milo was surprised, as he didn't often have guests, on account of his personality. Turning the handle, Milo was presented with a familiar young woman. "Sorry I'm late," apologised Heidi. "Hello?" answered Milo with uncertainty. "How did you know where I live?" "You asked me to meet you here yesterday." There was a small pause. "When did I do that?" "I think it was after the 7th whiskey." "Ah, that makes sense." "Do you feel like you should maybe cut down on the drinking?" "No, I can't. I drink to forget." "Forget what?" "I can't remember." "Well, I'm here now, so do you mind if I come in?" said Heidi, already halfway into the living room, much to the annoyance of Milo, although he wouldn't say anything. It was clear to Heidi that Milo made decent money from his job. Landscape paintings hung proud on the wall, with pots of flowers sitting underneath, and all the flowers were still alive, which is no small feat for most men. Despite the impression the owner may give, the house was far better maintained than the man was. Every table was clean, each window was spotless, and the furniture was laid out in such a way that you'd expect a protractor was involved at some stage. "You'll have to give me a minute," called Milo, as he walked into a room opposite from Heidi. Curiosity took hold of the woman for a moment, and she peered through the door as it was closing. Heidi saw a few things, but didn't have a chance to fully grasp the picture. It wasn't long before curiosity won the fight over common decency, and Heidi walked through the door, where she was presented with all manner of items. Graphs, shelves of books, and illustrations covered the walls like patio furniture on a freshly murdered body. Not a single bit of wall space wasn't being used for something. Examining the shelves revealed text from people Heidi had never heard of, writing about subjects she didn't realise existed. Some books were as thin as the paper it was printed on, others as thick as a wanker's forearm. It was a lot to take in, and she would have had the time to if it wasn't for Milo being there. "Hey, don't touch anything!" he shouted. "What is all this?" asked Heidi. "Research material." "For what exactly?" "Magic items." Heidi was taken aback. "Wow, I haven't heard about those things since school." Heidi knew a little about what she was looking at. She knew most magic items were lost in the mess of wars that happened because of them, and that they're incredibly rare in this era of Flatrock, making their relevance to modern society tiny compared to the past. Heidi picked random books off the shelves, Milo keeping a studious eye on her like she was holding his new child. Inside them, Heidi found notes of a lantern that produced a light that would allow people to see through solid objects. Another book was written about a ring that let the user blast freezing cold air from their fingertips. Another was about a mixing bowl that made bread dough rise at twice its normal speed. One of these books interested Heidi a tad less than the others. The books were written in multiple different handwritings, and they didn't have any marks to give the impression they were officially published, which Heidi questioned. "That's because I made them myself," answered Milo. "I take all the research material I can and compile it, or copy it down when I need to." "You made all these books?" said Heidi in some shock. "That's amazing!" Milo couldn't help but smile as a little spring of pride burst forth. "Most of them, certainly." There was a pause for a moment as Heidi continued to take it all in. "What got you into all this stuff?" "History. The entire world was changed by these items." "Even the bowl that makes bread rise?" "Not all of them, just the powerful ones." "Oh, this is my favourite," gushed Milo, picking a book from the shelf with sudden vigour. "You see this?" said Milo with a level of excitement he usually reserved for vodka. "Yes?" said Heidi with a level of confusion she usually reserved for idiots. Heidi was looking at a page that documented a piece of rope that could extend to any length without breaking, and was struggling to find the interesting part. "It's a magic rope that was used to tie up a whole castle," explained Milo. "Two horsemen circled the battlements and made an indestructible wall of the item. That castle still stands today because of that rope." Heidi was somewhat surprised by the sudden burst of excitement from Milo, admiring his dedication more so than the story of the indestructible castle. Milo looked at Heidi, hoping she was sharing his enthusiasm, but realised she wasn't showing much investment. "You don't care, do you?" asked Milo. "No, I do," answered Heidi. "You just caught me by surprise. And besides, it's nice you have something you're passionate about." Milo's smile returned to him, although the positive energy was quickly drained when he noticed the time and realised he'd be late for work. "Oh, cack!" barked Milo. "We've got to be going." Milo grabbed the book from Heidi and returned it to its labelled spot on the shelf, before retrieving his bag and bolting out the front door. Heidi took a look back into the study, not sharing the same level of urgency as her new work colleague, and left the building as well.